Welcome back to the American Culture Series. I'm Lisa, and today's topic is how Americans communicate. This is episode 2. If you're planning to visit the U.S., work with American colleagues, or chat online with American friends, communication style is everything. And if you don't already know, I spent most of my life in the U.S., in particular, New York. And I also spent a few years in Texas, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's answer the big question. Are Americans really friendly or just polite? So let's look at area number 1. We're going to talk about direct versus indirect communication. So let's start with this. Americans are considered direct communicators. This doesn't mean they're rude. It means they usually say what they mean in a clear, simple way. For example, they might say, "I disagree. I can't do that today. Please send this by Friday." Most Americans see this as efficient and honest, not offensive. However, here's the interesting part. Americans are direct about facts, but often indirect about feelings. Instead of saying, "You upset me," they might say, "I didn't love how that happened." Or instead of saying, "That's wrong," they might say, I'm not sure about that." So it's a mix. Clear messages with sometimes softened emotions. Let's go to area number 2. Small talk, why Americans love it. So small talk is a huge part of American communication. I talk about this a lot on this ESL channel. It's not about sharing deep information. It's about creating a comfortable atmosphere. Small talk is a big part of American everyday spoken English. So you should get very good at small talk. Small talk is not a part of many cultures, but it is very strongly ingrained in the American culture. Well, what are some common small talk topics that you can talk about? The weather, weekend plans, travel, food, sports, TV shows, and movies. But you should avoid age, salary, politics, religion, family problems. Small talk is basically, let's be friendly, even if we're not friends yet. I think that's a good way to define small talk. That's why when Americans says, "How are you?" they're not asking for your full medical history. We're really not asking how you are. And in a way, we don't really care how you are because the expected answer is good or not bad or pretty good, thanks. It's a greeting. It's not a deep question. That's why I just said we don't really care how you are, because it's an extension of hi, hello, how are you? We just take it all together. If you know the person, obviously, very intimately or on a very personal level, then of course you would tell them, "I'm very sick. I just got a bad diagnosis." That's okay. But generally, this is viewed as a greeting. Let's go to area number 3, politeness and softening words. So Americans often soften their sentences with polite words. Some languages don't do this, but we do this in American English, and we do it quite a bit. So sometimes students, when they translate from their native language to English, they don't know how to soften it. And we soften it by using what we call modal verbs. You don't need to really know the term, but it's words like, could, should, would. It softens it. For example, we can start a sentence by saying, "Maybe we could." "Would you mind?" "I was wondering if." "Could you possibly?" They sound friendly, but they also help avoid sounding bossy, like do this, do that. This is a politeness strategy that ESL students should copy. It makes communication much smoother. Number 4, nonverbal communication. Communication isn't only words. Here's what Americans expect. Let's talk about personal space. Americans prefer arm lends distance when talking to someone they don't know well. So standing too close can feel uncomfortable. And there's been studies on this. Different cultures prefer a certain distance when talking, whether you know the person or you don't know them, but Americans prefer about an arm's length distance. Eye contact. So we do practice moderate eye contact. It shows that you're confident in listening. If it's too little, so if you look down a lot or you look away a lot, it can show dishonesty or you're shy or you're hiding something. Or if it's too much eye contact, like you're staring or you're not blinking and just looking at the person, it can be very aggressive. That's how it could be viewed. So Americans like a balance. So eye contact is important, but an occasional glance away makes a person feel more comfortable. Smiling. Americans smile a lot. I think that is true. It doesn't always mean they're deeply happy. We learn it as a social gesture. Well, what does that mean? We're told, give good customer service with a smile. That's an example of how smiling is important, especially when you're trying to connect to people. So you might find that Americans smile because they want to give this idea of, I'm friendly, I'm safe, I'm open to conversation. So try to smile. If you're a person who doesn't naturally smile, you're going to have to think about it more in social settings. Not everyone does this so easily because sometimes it's just our personality. So don't force the smile, but try to be aware that when you smile, it does make you more inviting. Tone of voice. Americans use a warm, upbeat tone, even in casual situations. A flat tone might sound bored or even upset. So sometimes certain languages, when you speak English, you speak it with a very flat tone. You have to remember English is a stress time language, which means we have ups and downs. Our pitch goes up and down, and we have a different flow when we say certain words or certain sentences. We vary the amount of time that we spend on each syllable or sound. So it's not a very flat tone. So you do have to learn to work with your voice a little bit if this is a problem for you. If you're speaking English like a robot, you have to learn to be a little bit more loose with your tone, a little bit more upbeat, and certainly more warm. Number 5, are Americans really friendly? So, are Americans truly friendly? Well, yes and no. You have to remember Americans value friendliness as a social skill, especially in areas like customer service or on the job. They often act warm and polite even with strangers, but that doesn't mean they always want to be close friends. So you have to be careful. It's helpful to understand this point because you don't want to feel confused or misled. Because often we're taught to be friendly, again, with strangers in social situations. But then if you don't know this aspect of the culture, you think everyone wants to be your best friend. And then when you extend an invitation, you're surprised when you're turned down. So just be careful. I'm not saying that there aren't Americans who truly want to be your friend, that's not the case. I'm just saying that do not quickly mistake friendliness for deep connection. And that's today's episode. In our next video, we'll talk about American manners and daily etiquette, things you must know before you visit. If you found this helpful, like, subscribe, and share it with another ESL learner. I'll see you in episode number 3, and be sure to check the links in the description. That's where I often put ebooks and other resources like PDFs that dig a little bit deeper into this topic. See you in the next video.